Hello, good evening everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mbak, very well.
Okay, good. Welcome to System Thinking online class. This is the class number 10. Yeah, since March we have organizing this series of lecture with various speakers from different parts of the world. And today we have an honor to have Stephen McFadden from the US. He is a writer of Deep Agroecology, Farms, Food, and Our Future. It is his latest book, uh, published in 2019. Yeah, I have read that book, and it's a very interesting journey. So it's not only about intellectual journey, but also heart journey, because we can relate what we are eating with the whole universe and how our decision has influenced the universe, and the universe will uh, influence us back. So our decision about food, farm, and our life in general will determine the future for ourselves and also for next generation and also for the future of nature as the source of our uh, living. Uh, Good morning, Stephen.
Good evening, Ani, and good to everyone who has gathered on the internet. Good evening.
Yeah.
Good
Now,
evening.
now we have 42 participants with us, and I'm expecting that more to join. Hope they don't have any problem with their connection, so they can listen to your presentation tonight. And Stephen is an independent journalist. He has been write about earth, farm, and food for decades. And his book includes the community-supported agriculture. He wrote with Roger Groh. The title is Farms of Tomorrow, Community-Supported Farms and Farm-Supported Communities in 1990. So it has been 30 years ago since you've been writing that book to your latest book in Deep Agroecology. And beside that book, there's also The Call of the Land, the Agrarian, Primer for the 21st Century, and Awakening Community Intelligence. It's a CSR form as 21st Century Cornerstones. And then he, besides that series of books, he also make a contemporary epic, a non-fiction saga of North America. It calls Odyssey of the Eighth Fire. It is very interesting. I explored that slideshow and also the information. It's like following our journey from our ancestors to now, and then we can, from that we can determine our present and the future. Stephen is Balaton Group member. In 1990, he is the director of the Wisdom Conservancy, a national coordinator for annual Earth Day celebration in partnership with the Seventh Generation Fund. He developed the curriculum and launched nationwide council circles program for community gathering. So that's a brief information about Stephen. You can dig more of the information through the Deep Agroecology Net and also Siren Communication website. And also, Stephen can be contacted through Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So today we will have our session as the following structure. So first, maybe Stephen can present your slide set. We already distribute to the participants, so some of them might be already open and read your presentation. And then after that, we will have discussion. So the presentation maybe is about 30 to 40 minutes, up to 45 minutes. And then we will have discussion. And after that, we will have closing. Yeah. So thank you very much for attending this session. Now we would like to listen to Stephen. Please.
Good. Well, I'm trying to share my screen, but it's telling me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see it?
Yes. Yes, we can see it. And
There.
yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Good. Well, good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I want to introduce my wife, Liz Wolf, who's also joining us, and perhaps you can see her there. So here's the theme, deep agroecology, a vision for agriculture. And I want to say at the outset, it's not my vision exclusively, but rather a vision shared by, I would say, millions of people around the globe who are working in different ways. I'm a journalist, a reporter, and so I've gone about listening as closely as I can to what a lot of creative, innovative people have shared and brought it together. So that's the book. Here you will see that I'm offering greetings. I used Google Translate because I wanted to respect the culture and language of Indonesia. I know so little. I've been studying the last couple of weeks, trying to understand, and so I hope that this greeting comes across in a proper way. I wanted to mention that down at the bottom of the screen, I have put the motto of Indonesia, as I was able to learn it from the internet. And I won't try to pronounce it because I'm sure I'll do a poor job. But it struck me in the heart. I was moved to read this idea of diversity and unity. Here in my country, the United States, we have a Latin language motto, e pluribus unum, out of many, one, so that we come from many places and yet we all come together as one. And that's our process, our evolution, and it's ongoing. As I'm speaking, I hear the cat scratching at my door, so I'm going to excuse myself for 1 second to let her in, or she won't relax. She did. Where'd she go? Come on. Okay. So the cat has a mind of her own, of course. So as you can see from the photograph and the words here, and undoubtedly from your own knowledge and perception of what's going on in the world, global food systems are very much at a crossroad. And here I've set out what I regard as fundamental realities that we're dealing with now. And that is that our existence is dependent on the food that comes from farming and fishing. We must have that food first before the rest of life. At the moment, two factors are bearing heavily upon us: climate change and the pandemic. And I was just reading yesterday about the ice sheet to the north in Greenland, and an international team of scientists has determined that because of climate change, it's too late. All of the glaciers and the ice there are melting, and while it may hold together for a few more years, it's too late to save it. It's gone too far. And meanwhile, we have this pandemic, which is impacting everyone everywhere. The United Nations has just this week released a report mentioning their concerns about food security. So these two factors coming together, they're the great forces that we're all reckoning with, and they bid to disrupt food prices. We see that here in the United States, food prices are already rising, and possibly availability. You know, it's funny, not funny, but interesting in a way that there's generally adequate food produced on the globe every year to feed everyone, yet because of economic disparities and distribution, so many go hungry and are not fed. And then oddly, well, here in my country, in the US, people are overfed and have a health problem with obesity and diabetes. So these are the great inequities of our time, and I see them as fundamental. So our relationship to the earth is being challenged, and thus our future, not just for our children that we see, but also our grandchildren and their children and onward. There's a Native American teaching of the 7 generations. It's so beautiful. It touched me a long time ago, and I'll just share it now. The idea is that whenever we're taking an action in the world that is of significance, we think of those generations, our children's children's children, unto the 7th generation. And then we proceed when we have remembered all of these who are going to come. So if we look back or even look around, we see that our ancestors had some thought of us. I know I've been looking on YouTube at the beautiful travel videos of Indonesia and seen the gorgeous temples and thought, oh, you know, what people built these, they constructed such great beauty that touches and inspires us even to today. So they were thinking of us, they were thinking of the future. Now, the United Nations has pointed out quite strongly that effective adaptation can reduce our vulnerabilities with the food system and help us build foundations for the future. And that's really what I'm wanting to talk about with deep agroecology, this effective adaptations and building foundations for the future. So here's the motivations. Of course, the first drive for survival, the basic economic dimension. We must have the food first before anything else. There's no television, no acting, no dancing, no weaving of beautiful fabrics. We've got to have that food first. And then there's the drive for health, protecting the earth, the air, and the water, and then consequently, our human health. That's only possible when we have healthy farm organisms. And finally, I add the drive for meaning. Human beings really need to know that what they're doing with their lives, that their work has significance and is contributing either economically, politically, or culturally. They need a vision, or they slip into despair, to sorrow, and they don't act with beautiful wisdom for the present and the future. So here is a quote from Dana Meadows, or Donella Meadows. She was one of the founders of the Balaton group, and Ani mentioned that at the beginning. That's how I came to know her, through that group. Well, Donella passed away a few years ago, but before she did, she wrote key concepts for environmental education for the United Nations Educational Program. And she said the material needs are basic, just as I was saying, and if we don't have them, then our survival is threatened. And at the moment that survival is assured, that we know we have food enough for ourselves and our families, the next question becomes, survival for what? Why are we living? And she argues, and I agree with her, that a healthy, beautiful environment is not a luxury. It's a basic human need, both materially and non-materially, to lift the human spirit. Here I have a quote from Masanobu Fukuoka. He's the author of a very famous book, One Straw Revolution. And I've been rereading it the past weeks, especially paying attention to his approach to growing rice and also to mandarin oranges, which received a big orchard for that. But, if you have not read this book, I would definitely recommend it. At one point, he suggests that the ultimate goal of farming is not the growing of crops. Of course, that's an important goal. We have to have that first. But the ultimate goal is the cultivation and perfection of human beings. That's my focus with adding the word deep to the word agroecology. And I will say more about that as we go on. But I wanted to acknowledge Fukuoka and his contribution with this beautiful seed thought. So globally, we're at a strategic junction. We've always had agricultural systems of one kind or another, and they've been the key, whether the civilization was on the rise, whether it was at a stable level, or whether it was declining. So right now, so many forces at work, and part of them, of course, is this internet that we can connect and come together with this kind of technology and communicate with each other and share our knowledge. So we've got the pandemic, and we have this huge issue with global climate change. So here comes the question into focus. What kind of farm and food foundation do we need right now? And do we want for this moment in time? And also for the 7 generations, hence our children's children's children. So that's the question that I offer to you. I have my own answers and I offer them, but I think it's more important to offer the question and to encourage people to engage with that. What kind of systems do we want? Well, the United Nations is considering this question also, and the Secretary General has summoned all the nations of the world to come together for a grand summit next year. And these are the Secretary's words, to radically change the way that we produce, process, and consume food. So those are 3 important elements: the way we produce it, the way we process it, and the way we consume it. So this will undoubtedly be a very important meeting next year. Preparations are underway. And I want to say, you can see my comment on the side of the screen. Of course, this gathering is essential, but it's being criticized sharply. And that is because many of the multinational agricultural corporations that produce and process and distribute the food are already very deeply involved. And a lot of individuals and organizations around the world are concerned that their voices will not be heard, that the corporate industrial systems will overwhelm those voices. So here in the next slide, I just want to say a couple of things about corporate industrial agricultural systems. They generally focus on maximum production. What can we do at almost all costs to be sure that we're producing and thereby maximizing the profit return for investors. I know the palm oil element of agriculture is very important in Indonesia, or at least I've been learning that. And yet we see there are consequences that come from maximizing production and striving so diligently to make a profit. And it's not just palm oil, of course, but rice, corn, wheat, almost all of the major crops around the globe, where this narrow focus has led to serious problems. And these are just a few of them listed here: the water pollution, deforestation, resource depletion, because these corporate industrial agricultural systems depend on inputs that come from far away, buying fertilizers and chemicals for dealing with either weeds or preservatives or one thing or another. And so really the resources of the globe get stressed and depleted. And then there's the element of worker exploitation, and then chemical residues in food that can and do impact human health. So I turn to a quote here from Vandana Shiva of the Navdana Foundation in India. She, of course, is a very powerful advocate for agroecology, and her criticism of industrial agriculture is that it turns the earth into units of production, and it turns farmers into high-tech sharecroppers, and is, in her view, the single biggest contributor to our declining environment. So here it comes in one sentence. She says, it distorts the proper relationship between human beings and the natural world. So there's that word relationship. I wish I had underlined it on the screen because in my view, that's the critical thing. Our relationship with one another, with our animals, particularly our farmed animals, and also with the natural world of plants and insects. We have to have a right relationship. So now we come to the topic of agroecology, which is an emerging paradigm around the world. And it's not one specific formula for agriculture, but a range of food system pathways. And the thing that unites them is that they are aimed at a healthy environment, a healthy economy, and social change that is beneficial for the people of the world. It's transdisciplinary, and by that I mean agroecology draws not just from ecological understandings and the science of agronomy, but also botany, zoology, sociology, anthropology, ethics or morality, economics, permaculture, and indigenous or native wisdom ways. There's so much knowledge there. I know in my life, one of the great sources of learning has been with native relatives, the indigenous people of North America, Central America, and South America. And I'll say more as we go on, but there's such an important contribution there that has been overlooked, and the more technological societies have just tended to be like a steamroller or a truck and just going over and not paying attention, not listening. But now as we face these great crises of climate change and of the pandemic, it's good to open our ears and to listen, because all of these disciplines provide vantage points for studying our food system and for developing criteria beyond monetary profitability. If that's the only concern, it creates too many problems that we just cannot bear any longer. So we need other criteria. So it's a global movement. I haven't really learned too much about how key or central agroecology is throughout Indonesia, but I do know that it's a global movement coming on very strongly out of necessity, and it's rooted in systems theory. Essentially, to simplify description of that, it's the recognition that it's many parts and factors that make up the whole. And every part of the system, such as a farm field, feeds into the larger system. So it's the farm field feeds into the community, into the nation, and ultimately into the global food system. And as we know from general systems theory, if you change one part of the system, it has an impact on the other parts. And for us as individuals, if we eat, well, of course we do, then we're part of the system, and what we do impacts the whole. How do we choose to eat? Are we eating wisely to promote our own health and to feed our families in a good way? Or are we being foolish and eating foods which are going to cause health problems, or which impact the system and cause global corporate agriculture to intensify the problems of pollution and social injustice? So I love this image here of right relationship, earth-respecting ways, and balance. Now you can see some artist has balanced these stones on the boards so beautifully. And of course, it's quite dynamic. And that's the theme that unites all of the agroecological initiatives, is that they are balanced, they're earth respectful. And some of the names are familiar: organics, biodynamics, regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture, conservation agriculture, ecological permaculture, silvoculture, which is farming in the forest or allowing animals, herds to graze in the forest, and then Masanobu Fukuyama's natural farming. So there's no one formula. There are many different ways depending on the particularities of a culture or a civilization or a given community. And we need to have the flexibility and the possibilities, but it's got to be in right relationship with the earth. So in the year 2014, the United Nations FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, concluded quite strongly that agroecology is the specific strategy for feeding future generations, for establishing healthy environments, and for advancing social justice. That's such an important thing right there. That is the specific strategy. And agroecology, as I said earlier, it employs native or indigenous knowledge and balanced, sustainable technological advancements. It brings both together. And it's a global grassroots movement. But right now, it's in danger of being co-opted by corporate industrial actions. And I want to add here that we do need large-scale agriculture endeavors. There's close to 8 billion of us human beings on the globe. That's a lot of people, and it requires a lot of food. And so we do need these huge undertakings, but they must be undertaken in such a way that they are balanced and earth respecting and are not causing serious problems. Our situation right now, and I mean in 2020 and onward in the years immediately ahead, is too precarious for ongoing pollution and distortion of the natural and the human environment. So one of the core ideas of agroecology is food sovereignty. That's a term that was coined back in 1996 by Via Campesina, which is a Spanish term, basically means the way of the people, the way of the growers. And they put forward this idea that food sovereignty is the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods. So they say it's a right to have that. And people have the right to define their own food and agriculture systems. Food sovereignty also includes and defends the interests of coming generations, the next generations. So here are some of the ideals, and my understanding, ideals are unattainable. We have the ideal of perfection and we can reach towards it. We're always reaching towards it. We never quite get there. But it's so important to have those ideals and to strive towards them. This is the great endeavor of the human soul as individuals and collectively. So the ideals are a triple bottom line. Instead of just a bottom line that is economics, we must make a profit. And at the end of the year, when we look back at all the work we have done and all we have produced, is our central concern just we made money, we have a lot of money, and that's a good thing? No. With the triple bottom line, of course, that's a factor. You want things to be economically strong and healthy, but also equity and ecology, meaning that the earth was cared for and that the people who did the work received fair and adequate compensation for the efforts that they put in. So there's economy, equity, and ecology. With deep agroecology, we add a fourth. So there's a quadruple bottom line, which is that there's creative expression, there's beauty and an opportunity for the human soul to find its way into a beautiful way of expressing itself. So one model of agroecology, and one that I've been involved in since 1986, is called CSA, or Community Supported Agriculture. And that's a free will association of a community of households who directly engage with a farm or a network of farms, and they support it. Usually up front, before the growing season begins, they make an investment in the farm. And then the farm promises to return to them with fresh, clean food. And of course, they're sharing a risk because the harvest some years is wonderful and the harvest other years is not so good. But the farm and the farmers have the knowledge that the support is there for them to do what is right for the land and to do what is right for the animals. So with the CSA, and this is an international movement, the growers and the shareholders share the risks and the benefits. I don't know if you can see at the bottom of the screen, but I've put down the internet address for a group. Ani, does the screen show urgency? URGEN, maybe I'm blocking it with my, I'm trying to move. There, there's an international CSA resource, URGEN genci.net. That's a group based in France, but the CSA movement is quite international in Europe, Australia, even in China. One of my books has translated into Chinese and another into the Korean language, also into Russian, because this is a new form of relationship. And the key words up here are free will association. Next slide will say more about that. So association in the English language then becomes a modifier, associative economics, where people have chosen to associate with one another. And the questions that drive their enterprise, their coming together, are not, how do we make a good profit this year? That is an important question, and certainly the central question of capitalism. Whereas with communism, sometimes the central question has been, you know, what does the state want? And the state, whatever state it might be, determines what's going to happen. With associative economics, people come together out of choice, and they ask three questions. What does the farm need? What's the right thing to do for the farm? What do the farmers need so that they can continue their work? I often refer to the farmers as our ambassadors to planet Earth, because they touch the earth for us. We may be involved in some cultural activity or a business activity, or we may work in a government, and we don't touch the earth ourselves, but the farmers touch it for us. So what do they need so that they can touch it in a respectful and balanced way? And then what does the community need? Now, it's not really a hierarchy of questions. All three of these questions need to be asked and answered by the group that comes together under an associative economic relationship. So here now I'm bridging those ideas are common to agroecology. Why have I added the word deep to its description? Well, first of all, deep agroecology embraces and welcomes the core ideas and approaches of agroecology. And it respects the right of all creation to exist independent of human purposes. I think we learned from deep ecology, which was a set of principles put forth in the 1970s, first by a man named Arne Næss from Norway, where he said that the natural world has its own inherent right to exist, distinct from its usefulness. You know, what can we get from it? What can we do with it? Usually we look at things only that way, but that life has its own right to exist. So I think that's an important thought, particularly as we look at all the farmed animals of the world. There are literally millions and millions of cattle and sheep and pigs now dwelling in industrial settings, you know, crowded together, thousands upon thousands. Here I'm speaking with some passion because right around where my wife lives and I live, which is in the very dead center, the very heart of North America, the state of Nebraska. We're a farming state, and we have dozens and dozens of these huge industrial animal factories is what they are. And it's very concerning. They have a very powerful and negative impact on the environment, and certainly also on the animals. So I won't go on too long here. It's a vast subject unto its own, but I will say that both agroecology and deep agroecology recognize the importance of this. So deep agroecology is striving, looking for ways to establish a clean, healthy foundation on the earth for our next generations and for our next evolutionary steps, physical and spiritual. Okay, so here's, this is kind of, the next two are philosophical considerations. Nikola Tesla was a physicist, and he was so brilliant. And towards the end of his life, he said that if you really want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So I think a common way to begin appreciating that is thinking of how maybe you were sitting in a coffee shop somewhere one day and suddenly you felt something and you turn your head and you see, oh, someone's staring at you, they're looking at you. Or maybe you got caught, you were somewhere and you were staring at someone trying to see, who is that? What's really going on with that person? And then they quickly turned their head and they caught you looking at them. Well, how did you know? How did you feel that? What made you aware? Well, there was an energy transference. And certainly we know that we have all entered perhaps a home or an office where things just felt right. It was a feeling of contentment or peace. Or maybe we went into a temple or a church or a mosque and we immediately felt that energy. Or maybe we went somewhere else where there's been an argument or even violence, and we felt that too. So here in using this quote, I want to begin making a bridge to the agricultural realm and saying that that's part of our universe too. And there's energy, frequency, and vibration in the agricultural realm. And this is what deep agroecology is reaching towards, trying to understand and to employ wisely. So here's an agricultural professor from the University of Firenze in Italy. And I love this quote, so beautiful for contemplation. The light of our land becomes the light of our food, becomes the light of our lives. Well, here maybe it's most helpful to talk about saints, even in all the world's religions, you know, throughout history, there have been certain women and men who radiated light, and even the great artists and sculptors may have put a halo, a ring of light around them. Or maybe we've even experienced ourselves to be able to see the light coming out of people who have great love in their hearts and great understanding. Well, that can be true on the food too. There are distressed farm fields which are very dull and the energy is low. And then there are farm fields and gardens that are radiant and beautiful. That light comes into us when we eat or when we behold a beautiful flower, and it becomes the light of our lives. And the more light we take into ourselves, the more light we have to share with the world. These are thoughts of deep agroecology. So here's, you know, the distinction. I know my wife Liz keeps saying to me, what do you really mean with deep agroecology? What is it? Why is it in some way different from agroecology? So deep agroecology goes beyond the concept of treading lightly and respectfully on farm fields and orchards. And the concept is to actively engage, cultivate, and to raise the energy of our farms and gardens so that they are holding and radiating more light, which comes into us, and creating oases of environmental health that radiate a high, clear vibration. I hope you can see the whole of the screen here, but that's the idea, that by developing and cultivating our farm fields and our relationships with the animals and our relationships with the farmers who are our ambassadors to the earth, that we make it possible for a healthy step forward in our human moral and spiritual evolution. I feel that's so essential because the crises of climate change and right now the coronavirus pandemic are so profound that we must go forward, not only physically evolve, but spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually evolve as well. So Ani asked me to strive to address this question, what can we do? So number one, to look around for places in the system where you or the organization you're involved with can have an impact for farm and food sustainability, and then to take that action. How can you implement agroecology? And then if the philosophical ideas of deep agroecology inspire you, how can you help that too? I have always found it helpful to make the vision or the ideal concrete by writing it down on paper and stating it plainly. Here's what my ideal is, or to create it as a drawing or a painting or even a sculpture. Because if you don't have a vision, the vision cannot come true. If you don't have a dream, the dream cannot come true. So define it. It can change, you know, maybe in a week, in a year, you see that it's no longer appropriate and it can change. But if you define it in such a way, it empowers you to take the steps to fulfill the vision and become a model of what's wise and possible. Next, you consume wisely. If you're everything, every rupiah that you spend is an investment in the kind of farms and foods that you are supporting and that you're bringing forward. So it's important for every one of us to be careful with the money that we spend. Here on the list, I mentioned community land trusts. And I don't know how much of a factor this would be throughout Indonesia, but here in the United States and throughout North America, what's happened is that land has been treated as a commodity, and investors who have a great deal of money buy it up and own it. And then they hire people, usually at low wages, to come and do the work on the land. And young people in particular who feel the vocational call to be farmers, that's why they were born, to grow food for the people. They're unable to afford it. They're unable to have a piece of land for themselves and their families. It's out of reach. And this process has been accelerating. Larger and larger, basically multinational investment corporations buy up the land. So a community land trust instead is where a group of people in a village or a town or even a city purchase a plot of land that's suitable for farming, and they purchase it for the last time. They take it off the market and they dedicate it through the legal instruments to be available in perpetuity, or that's a funny English word, but on into the future, so that generation after generation after generation will have that land available at affordable terms to be used for growing food, clean, healthy food. So I always want to encourage people to explore the community land trusts and to hold the land for the benefit of the community rather than the benefit of a few investors who may live in another country far away and not have a direct relationship. Oh, I want to back up. It so happens, as I said, that everywhere around the world, people are forming their visions and taking steps to make them real. The Rockefeller Foundation has been conducting a global contest for food systems visions. And they're going to select one or two in September or October and provide a great deal of funding for that vision. But the top visions have been posted online. It's foodsystemvisionprize.org, O-R-G, at the end. And so you can go online and take a look at these visions to see, do they inspire you? Is there something that you might learn? Is there something that Indonesia might benefit from looking forward to the future, to stimulate and inspire your own thinking and your own actions? So this is my concluding statement. You can see the cover of my book is over there on the left. It's only in English at the moment, but perhaps it will go into other languages. But I use the phrase here, our main chance, and I say it, our main chance for dealing with global climate change and our global health circumstances. Agroecology and deep agroecology are our main chance for survival, for a clean, stable earth, for health, for beauty, to uplift us to a greater degree of spiritual maturity, no matter the particular religious path that we've chosen. And also our main chance for the next 7 generations of our children. I see that so strongly, I feel so passionately about that. And that's why I have dedicated my life to helping to share information and understanding and inspiration about this. So this is the final screen, and you can see there's a foundation stone there that was set for that building, and it looks quite sturdy. Right now, a lot of our foundations are crumbling, and we're needing to build new foundations with a broader set of criteria than just monetary profitability. We also need the other factors, the triple and the quadruple bottom lines. So those are some ideas and thoughts about deep agroecology. I'm happy now to engage in conversation and discussion with you all. And I guess I should click the button to end the slideshow. And there. So Ani, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Do you
Good.
want to stop the share screen?
Let's see. Zoom. I'm looking around for the right button.
Oh, stop share screen. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Stephen, for your presentation. We have one chat from Anupam. Anupam Saraf is also Balaton group member from India. Anupam, would you like to open your mic and say something?
Hi, Steve.
Hi,
It's
Anupam.
wonderful to hear you and see you in person. I hope you and your loved ones are doing well and are healthy in this very difficult time. And thank you for the...
I cannot hear you.
Thank you. Thank you for the very insightful presentation on deep agroecology. It's really fascinating to hear it from you. So, you know, one of the prime things that came to my mind is that increasingly all over the world, we have all become consumers of food which comes from further and further away. And in some sense, that has been the great driver for industrial agroculture. And, the examples that you did share about how we have really become industrial producers for food across the world. I think I would love to hear your thoughts about how we can find leverage to move back to maybe local food growth and local food consumption. And do you think that would help us to move away from really looking at this industrial agroculture which has invaded us?
Mm-hmm. If I recall correctly, Anupam, I had the pleasure to meet you at Lake Balaton in Hungary back in 1993. So it's a long time ago. And
yes,
what now? Good to see you again. And I hope
I'm
that
delighted to see you.
Are well. So there is a global movement to strengthen local food production, and we see it here in North America. I'm aware of it in Europe also, and I believe the UN has said that really the greatest amount of food is produced locally by small farmers, of small scale farmers. And the industrial systems primarily produce commodities. And maybe we do need it on that scale, but they can be done with non-polluting methods, and I think also with greater equity for the human beings who do the labor. So that movement is coming forward strongly. I think a lot of NGOs and so forth are trying to have their voices heard at the Global Food Summit that will happen next year. And hopefully their concerns and their criticisms will be taken seriously. I think we don't have a lot of time to wait on these things, and that it's important to go forward now. I know when the pandemic really began in the spring, or at least in the States here when we were facing it, there was a run on seeds. Everybody was starting a backyard garden, and soon there were no seeds on the shelves, and there was a shortage. And also a lot of people trying to grow food who really don't know how to do it. And of course, it's a skill set. It's a very refined set of skills to do that. So anything that any individual or group or community can do to strengthen the local food production, I think is of critical importance right now.
Thank you. Can I ask you a little follow-up question? So
yes.
If we look at, Vandana Shiva often talks about the loss of the diversity of crops that we have, in every farm. So, and increasingly with the Monsantos of the world pushing down their seeds onto farmers across the world, what do you see as the future of actually getting that biodiversity back onto our farmland?
I think it's going to be in part a political process. And at the moment, I'm only really informed of what's going on in this country. And the corporate industrial monoculture, which is just acres and acres of soy or acres and acres of GMO corn, that's getting all of the benefits, all of the subsidies, all of the resources, and all of the research. So it's the people in communities who are making any progress towards the local on their own. And of course, it's a very small scale compared with this. So I think, to go back to that word political, here we need a change in our government. where our political leaders will recognize the importance of the local food and also the diversity. I know the book Monoculture of the Mind, written by Vandana Shiva, talks about this process and the difficulties that come with it, because at least so far, all of the innovations in the genetically modified crops essentially are modified so that the crops go better with different chemicals, chemical inputs from far away. So I don't know, maybe there will be some hopeful and beneficial developments with genetic engineering in the future. But if it's just to support the chemical and input industries, as it is at the moment, things are going to continue to deteriorate. So I say, you speak up with your political voice, cast your ballot, and support leaders who recognize the importance of this diversity. And I suppose we could say, you know, it's like cultural diversity is happening around the world. It's just the natural flow of things. It needs to happen with our crops and our planting also.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank
I
you.
hope we will have opportunity to meet each other physically, not too distant in the future.
Yes, no more, not another 27 years.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now I invite Yusak to. You want to say your question, Yusak? Please open your mic and you say your question. Yusak, would you please open your mic and say your question?
Yeah, I'm Yusak. Good
Yes, please.
night. Yeah, we have community. I don't know, just like CSA that you presentation. We call it Bengkel Tani, or at English is a workshop of the farm workshop. I don't know. So we plan with we go to farm with some I don't know, we cannot call organic, but it come from some microba, or we choose the local microba. So we farm with the fertilizer. So in our dream, we can build a community that we choose some product of agriculture, so we can food with with healthy, with choice. I'm interested with your presentation about CSA. Maybe you can describe how to build this community.
Okay. Okay, Yusak, thank you very much. I will summarize your question. So you want to get more information about CSA and how to set up CSA, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
I would say the best place to look for that information is with the international group, and it's urgency.net. I will spell it out, URGENCI.net, or is it, yeah, it's .net, I think, not .org. And Otherwise, I think if you search on the internet under
Pardon
CSA,
me, can you repeat?
Yes. Wait a second. So that the site,
the website,
the
Yeah.
website. Yeah.
but they have representatives around the world and in different languages. Their materials are available in many different languages. And in addition to printed materials, they have a great number of educational videos that you can access through the internet. So they have very much international focus. For me, I'm just here in the United States, and so I'm just one person alone. I don't even belong to any organization, so I'm limited in my knowledge, and I can speak about the CSA model in the States. But internationally and for Indonesia, you know, how might it be adapted in a way that is useful there? It's an interesting question, and I think you can get some good answers from that group.
Thank you. Now I invite Intan Darmawati. Would you please open your mic and say your question, please?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the very insightful presentation, Steve. It's very inspirative. I'm very interested when you say about the linkage from the agroecology. You mentioned it, deep agroecology, and then with the human spiritual step that spiritual step of humanity. So you mentioned about that one. Can you explore more about the linkage? How do you like linking this deep agroecology with this human spirituality? And the second question is like, I always heard like about when we say about the sustainability, then we always mention about the next generation for our grandchildren, and you mentioned about seven next generation. So I just think about this one. Two thinking is pop up in my mind. The first is like right now, lots of human in the big country, especially, no more children. They don't have any more children. So the argument about the next generation, maybe it's not so big motivation for them, because like example for me, I don't have any children. So for me, is it, so what? That's not my motivation to keep this sustainability for the next generation. So that will be our challenge for the next campaigns on the sustainability in terms of this argumentation. And then the second one, another thinking about this argument is, like for me, I think about this energy of the whole one, like human is only one and then the youngest species in this world. So, and then the history of the earth is about the extinction of the species, right? So it means it's very natural and possible that humanity can be extinct in this world too. And what's the problem? If this is naturally become the nature law, so why we always like focusing on sustaining the human being? Like this has become the focus. Like we want to sustain the generation of the humanity. So that's what my thinking pop up. How do you? What is your comment? Thank you.
Okay. Well, to go back to the first part, you know, how does the farms and food reflect on our spirituality? I would say that, you know, when the environment is degraded, it weighs heavily on our hearts and makes us feel sad if we're living someplace that is ugly or filthy. or if we see that the waters are filled with trash and pollutants, it drags us down. It pulls us down and makes it more difficult for us to feel positive and uplifted and to go on with our spiritual practices, whatever they may be, whatever religion may have spoken to our souls. Likewise, really on the other hand, if we're someplace beautiful and we see great beauty around us and great cultural beauty, whether it's poetry or dance or music, that lifts us up. Likewise with the food, if the food is beautiful and healthy and fresh, it gives us strength and vitality. But if it's dull or poor, and here I'm thinking of our American fast food, you know, a lot of the greasy hamburgers and greasy fried chicken and all. Well, it might taste delicious going down, but we see we have tremendous health problems here in the United States with diabetes. This is a disease of overindulgence, and likewise with obesity. And it's kind of a global problem, and bad foods contribute to that. I think they also contribute to a fog in the mind if you're eating a lot of additives. There was a famous film made, I can't think of it at the moment, but a man who ate nothing but McDonald's hamburgers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for, I think it was a month, maybe longer. He ate nothing but those. And he gained weight. His skin became marked and splotchy. And his mind, he was having trouble thinking straight, thinking clearly, having accurate perception. So I think, you know, there's a correlation, a connection between living in a place that's beautiful and eating beautiful, healthy foods and being freer for your soul to express itself through the vehicle of your body in a healthy way. And certainly if you're sick from eating the wrong foods, it's harder to stay on your spiritual path. You're dealing with your health and all of that. Now I may need Ani to come in and remind me of the other parts of your question. I don't want to lose the thread. I do want to respond.
The second one about the next generation, why we just take care of human.
You know, can I answer why? I don't know, you know, it's in my heart, and I guess I hope, maybe it's one of my ideals, that hope is in the hearts of other people too. I don't have children. My wife, Liz, and I, we don't have children, but we do care about the children in our neighborhood. There are a great many of them, and we see them out there playing, and we talk with them, and they like to visit with our dog when we take our dog out. So I know having those children around lifts me and inspires me. I like to see the smiles on their faces and to hear them laughing. And I know I'm 71 now, you know, do I have 10 more years, 20 more years? Who can say maybe the coronavirus will bring my life to a quick end. We both, Liz and I, have written our last will and testament in case we should get sick and die, what will become of our you know, our house and our car and our animals. We made a plan for that. And I want the next generations to benefit. You know, it's why I donate extra money to the local food bank and to other institutions, because I'll go at some point, but I want life to continue. I want there to be happiness, joy, and development. So that's the only way I can respond to why it's a feeling that I have of wanting my neighbors, and I don't mean just my neighbors here in Nebraska or the United States, but I feel a part of the globe. I feel a part of the world. I want the world to go forward, to grow and develop in a healthy way. So that is why.
Thank you very much. There is another question. Dani Fatima, do you want to say your question, please?
Yeah, hi Stephen. Thank you for your really good knowledge for me. Um, yeah, it's make me think again about my food, my impact to the agriculture, and my question is, do you have a model for sustainable agriculture for industry? Because now in Indonesia, our government want to explore the agriculture industry. Do you have the model for maybe for our government or maybe for the CEO of the agriculture corporate to make their industry more sustainable, or or maybe more connecting with the community or something like that? Yeah, thank you.
There are a great number of models around the world, and that's why I put up the URL for the World Food Systems Vision at the end of the presentation, because I thought, oh, there are a number, I think they have 10 or maybe 12 models that come from different communities in different places around the world. So that's one place to look. I know in India, the Navdanya Foundation has many models, and I don't know what their website is. I guess I could research it and send it to Ani to add to the text of this session. But there's, one of the things about agroecology is there's no one formula, hard and fast. There are these different models, these different approaches. And I certainly personally grow my garden with organics. And Liz and I are members of a community farm here in Nebraska. It's called the Common Good Farm. And that's another model on the CSA, Community Supported Agriculture form. But there's so many different people and so many different cultures around the world that no single model can serve all. There need to be a diversity of models. So that's one place to begin looking is at World Food Systems Prize website.
Thank you. Now we have another question from Iwan Cahyo Suryadi. Would you please state your question?
Hello, not video, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I think Indonesia now have a big event to restart our agriculture. I have a project in East Java. I'm building coffee manufacture near Ijen Mountain. I built with crowdfunding system. Now, before pandemic, I can sell in Netherlands and France. This pandemic, I can sell anything to overseas. Now, but the local have a lot demand for coffee. Yeah, they take away from coffee shop buying online. So I need to ask you, Stephen, how the United States handle this pandemic for the agriculture? Let's say coffee or soybean in United States. I think it's enough. Bu Ani?
Yes. So Pak Iwan explained that he has a cafe, it's a coffee shop
I
producing
have a
selling
manufacturer.
Coffee manufacture. Oh, produce, you produce your coffee, and also plantation or just roasting.
No, I'm buying from the farmer in Bondowoso, Mon Ijen.
Ah, okay.
So I'm ecology balancing.
Oh, okay. So it's a like green standard of coffee. This is his background, and he would like to know how U.S. handle pandemic in terms of agriculture, especially for soya beans and corn,
And our coffee.
and also for our coffee, because
How
we
to find the market for it?
handle.
Before pandemic, I can sell, I can export to Netherlands and France. Before pandemic, in pandemic, our local demand so high. So I think this this moment to localize our agricultural product in Indonesia, especially coffee. So a lot demand here in Indonesia. So I think now even for Indonesia to restart our product in a good way. So I'm asking you, Stephen, how the United States handle this pandemic on terms of farmer.
Okay, so maybe I can summarize. So Pak Iwan explained that his background is a coffee manufacturer, and usually he export the coffee to Netherlands and other country. But with the pandemic, the supply, the demand of domestic demand for coffee is increasing. So he think that this is the time to localize our food consumption, including for coffee. And what he would like to know is how US handle this pandemic in terms of agriculture, especially for soya bean.
And or coffee.
Yeah, and also coffee.
Well, after all of that question, I'm afraid I have very little to offer in the way of specific advice and information. My expertise is as a journalist to listen and try to understand, but I don't have expertise in actually producing crops or marketing crops. But I would encourage in the direction of strengthening the local market so that that's accessible. Of course, one of the great beauties of the modern world is that we have foods coming from all over the world. And, you know, we can get coffee from Indonesia in France or Holland or elsewhere. But that also uses tremendous amount of energy and creates pollution on its own with things being shipped every which way. So all I can do is raise the question, you know, where's the point of balance in all of that, where the costs outweigh the benefits, and you know, really we have to make those decisions. And as for the local market, I would definitely encourage going in that direction and making that stronger. I hope I've responded helpfully. Maybe not.
Yeah, then we can continue our discussion in the WhatsApp group. Pak Yuan, so we are in the right direction. If your coffee is go local and you get the same amount of benefit of profit out of local market, it will be good for Indonesia in terms of consumers and producers, as well as for the environment, because it will be emitting less carbon dioxide from transport, and we get good coffee for our society, and also the farmers get the benefit from selling their coffee, right?
It's balanced. Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. Now we move to our last question from Dian Anis Purbasari. Mbak Sari, would you please say your question?
Yes, hi. Good morning, Steve and Liz. And thank you for your presentation. It's very enlightening. One day I've met this lady from a filmmaker from France. She lives here now, but she said that Indonesia is blessed to have abundant biodiversity and fertile soil, most of the part of Indonesia. And she said this, she has this hypothesis. Unfortunately, the Indonesian people are more and more disconnected with their cultural identity and also uprooted from their context, because what we eat is mostly not locally sourced, meaning like especially in the urban area, like in Jakarta where I am living, the kids and people here mostly eat something that is produced from wheat, that is bread and also noodles. So these food is not endemic in Indonesia. And she said that that also make us disconnected with our context, with our culture, and also with our identity. So also I trace back in Borobudur, one of the panels of the temple, it is said that it is described that around 5th century, 6th century, we mostly commoners in Java land consume tuber like cassava, taro, endemic taro, and such. And now we are all Indonesia are kind of forced to eat rice, and also not right now we are more and more into noodles and bread and those wheat based food. So my question to you, because what she said kind of ring true for me, but I want to hear what you have to say about the connection between food and identity, self-identity, and also cultural identity. Thank you.
Well, I think it's very important what you pointed out. On an individual level, of course, as I was saying, every rupiah or every dollar that you spend impacts the system and either supports what you see as good and helpful and serves as a model. So, how does this come into public consciousness? I think only through education and demonstration. It's, making it available and helping people to understand the importance of these things. We can't just be going completely towards the pleasure principle, because our situation's too precarious right now with the climate change. And I know, as I mentioned at the start of this presentation, how scientists have said that the ice sheets in Greenland are beyond the point of saving. They're going to go, the sea level is going to continue to rise, and the storms are going to continue to intensify. This is serious business. This threatens all of us. And so we may say, well, I want a McDonald's hamburger, or I just want to eat these kinds of noodles. But you need to understand, I say you, but I mean all of us need to understand that the individual decisions that we make about the foods that we eat and the food systems that we support are critical. And they're critical right now, not at some point in the distant future. And it's on the news every night. If you watch the news, you see the consequences of these things. Here in the States, we're having firestorms, tremendous fires are burning everything up. And then we had what's called a derecho, which is a straight ahead wind, not like a typhoon where it's swirling in a spiral, but it's straight ahead, and it came across the state of Iowa and destroyed millions of acres of crops. These are consequences of climate change. So actively supporting local food systems by purchasing foods that are appropriate and local. That's so important, and supporting local farmers, the people, the ambassadors who touch the earth for you. They need to know that you are there and that what they're doing, that you recognize how important what they're doing is. And so these are not just purely abstract or philosophical issues anymore. They're matters of survival. And I think anything that we can do to educate the public, not just out of fear. I know I'm saying all these are things we need to be concerned about. I don't want to leave people in a state of fear. I want to leave them and to leave all of us in a state of action and determination, and recognizing that our strength and courage are important right now, and that we need to take steps forward. So, you know, can you help educate the public in some way? Everything makes a difference. If I might tell one quick story, Ani, I've gone on what is known as a vision quest, a Native American tradition, and I've done it a number of times, but the first time I did it, I went up on the mountain for 4 days and 4 nights, and I was fasting and praying, and I kept waiting for something dramatic to happen. You know, maybe an angel would come out of the sky and reveal all the mysteries of life to me, but that didn't happen. All that happened was bugs ate me all day, and at night there were scary noises in the bushes. And so at the end of 4 days, nothing. And I thought, oh, my friends are all enjoying parties and music and dancing, and here I am sitting here. So while I was waiting for my friends to come up the mountain and gather me and bring me back down, I was fiddling with a twig, just playing it with my fingers, and I broke the twig. It snapped, and when it snapped, something in my mind snapped, and I realized I had just changed the world. So it was a tiny little change, but it was a change because there was no way ever to put the twig back. And so it is, this is my final philosophical observation. Everything that we say and do makes a difference. It makes the world worse, or it makes it better. And so when it comes to educating the world, being a model of what you know is good and helpful, that's the most important thing. And then using your professional and personal skill set to communicate that. So important, so helpful.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, there is another one more question, if you don't mind to answer that, from Elwin. Elwin, please open your mic and say your question, please.
Yeah, good evening, Stephen.
Good evening.
Yeah, I heard that you are the one who wants the food from organic farming. You want carrot, only carrot, not with the residue. But the reality, especially here in Indonesia, most of the farmers are using chemical for their product. What is your comment about it? I mean,
well, my comment is that it really isn't essential. We have learned enough over the last 50 or 60 years about organic, biodynamic, regenerative agriculture, that crops can be grown either with greatly reduced amounts of chemical inputs, or without them at all. Of course, every farm field is different, is particular. Right now with the corporate industrial system, everything is treated one way. You know, there's a hard and fast formula. But the farmer needs to invest a great amount of money to buy those chemicals and those special seeds and follow the formula. And it is more challenging to grow organically. You have to be more sensitive, more attentive, and in some ways more knowledgeable. But it is possible, and it's happening around the world, that these non-chemical systems or low chemical input systems are producing equivalent amounts to what is produced with the chemicals. So it can be done, it should be done, and the world will be a better place for it, and we'll be healthier people for it.
Thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome, Elwin.
Thank you very much for Pak Elwin. If you live in Bandung, there is some young farmers here, Fania, and then she starts organic farm and also market to the organic products to the community through online shopping. And there's also Seribu Kebun and then Regasa Sehat. So please join the circle, and then we can put, if you really want to have organic product, then you can also support the organic movement.
Thank
Especially,
you.
yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Mbani, for the information.
Yes.
We'll do that.
Yeah. And Stephen, I think we come to the end of our session. Before we close, do you want to say something about like closing statement, or what do you think about the most important things that we need to remember or to take away from our conversation this evening?
Well, I shared so much already. I think that the important ideas that I had to communicate are there. What I'm feeling in my heart now is just relationship with you all. Even I imagine if we were to put a pencil through the globe of the earth, we're at opposite ends, Indonesia and Nebraska, other parts of the world. And yet for me, it's been wonderful to share with you and to feel the connection. Maybe that's the final thing I have to say. It is ultimately, of course, a small planet. We know when the satellites send back to Earth images of our blue-green world, that we're small as we drift through space. And so we really need to love and protect our home. And it takes all of us to do that. Me in Nebraska, and you where you may be in Indonesia, and Lake Balaton in Hungary, and India and China and all the rest. We need to think of one another and respect and be in right relationship. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity to be with you and to share. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you all for joining our class tonight. Hope that everything that we discussed tonight can be stay in your heart and inspire you to do the good things for the nature and also for other people, because we are one. We are connecting in one web of life, right? Okay, now it's the time for open our mic video so we can say thank you to everyone, especially for Stephen for this evening, and say terima kasih. Terima kasih is like thank you in bahasa Indonesia.
Good night.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Terima kasih, Stephen.
Thank you,